In today's episode, we talk about protecting your legacy by giving it away. It is an extremely important topic that encompasses the areas of the wealth that you've created and how to pass it on safely and efficiently to your family and beneficiaries. Hello and welcome to Dollars, Dirhams, and Our Two Financial Cents, our podcast series on financial planning brought to you by the Continental Group. In this series, we take a look at all things wealth and finance, from how to accumulate and manage your money to how to protect and grow it. Today, we have with us Mr. Adil Qadri, a colleague of mine from Continental, whom I've known for over 15 years or thereabouts. Adil is a qualified CFP and a financial planner by profession. He's also an MDRT qualifying and life member for over 18 years and has been involved in the financial planning business since then. He is also an author of the book 3 Steps to Financial Freedom that is available on Amazon Kindle and in print. Welcome to the show, Adil.
Thank you very much, Anselm.
Have I missed anything out there?
I think you have almost done most of the things which I have given it to you.
Okay. And today we are going to be talking about financial consolidation and record keeping. It's a topic that many of us may not necessarily look at or think about as something that's very important on our list of things, especially when it comes down to our financial life. But let me ask you this. How many of you are aware that when we look at the Swiss banks or banks in general, that there are millions and billions of rupees, dollars, dirhams that are left unclaimed? And the reason for that money remaining and resting with the banks is many a time the dependents or the beneficiaries do not really know how to claim that money or that account exists. And that is a topic that Adil is going to shed some light on. So Adil, it's an interesting topic. I mean, from a financial planning perspective, how did you get into it? It is something that you don't really think about until you encounter it. So I'm assuming you have some interesting stories to share. So please do tell.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, Anselm, for inviting me to speak on the subject, which is very, very close and near and dear to me. And this particular area of financial planning is nothing but a value-add services which any financial advisor can give it to their clients. You know what, when we talk about financial planning, there are 3 stages which everyone goes through. One is the first and the foremost is that wealth protection, where people go and do their life insurances and critical illness insurances when they are young. Second is wealth accumulation, where they invest in diversity and they invest in different asset allocation in different places based on their objectives. And the third and the final one is wealth distribution. What happens is that we normally forget one area which is falling between the wealth accumulation and wealth distribution, and that is called as wealth consolidation, or you can say even a record keeping. Mm-hmm. Rather than giving you a concept, let me just give you a real-time case study. Of course, I am not going to disclose the name of my clients due to the client's confidentiality, but I will just name a client based on what I have it with me.
Sure.
In 2018, I met with a client by the name called as Mr. John. Mm-hmm. What happened is that Mr. John has done a couple of things with me. He has covered all the areas of financial planning, and then I was just touching base with him that what else he has done so that we can review it in totality. He disclosed that he has done some couple of Indian mutual funds as well. And I said, can you share with me that what kind of a mutual funds you have done? Okay. He was finding it a little difficult to find it out. And he said, Adil, whenever I go to India, there is a financial advisor who keep on giving me mutual funds on and off. Mm-hmm. I said, can you share that particular mutual fund list with me? Which he did, but he took a long time to give it to me. We consolidated that thing on a piece of paper, or you can say an Excel sheet. And to my shock and to his shock, there were about 67 mutual funds with about 10 AMCs. I went to the same client, Mr. John, and said, Mr. John, can you imagine that how cumbersome, how difficult it is going to be for your wife to take the money out from there? Because the worst part was that all were in a non-demat form. They were not in one place. They were in a different AMCs, and he has to practically go to each and every AMC to claim that money. What I did is that since I have also been associated with a company which helps to do an Indian mutual fund, I asked him to open a demat account with me, which he did. We brought all the mutual funds and on one platform, and today I can proudly tell you that this client is having about only 8 mutual funds, which is needed and necessary. And the best part is all these mutual funds are only on one platform, and at a click of a button he can buy, sell or manage it by way of just pushing some few clicks, and he's done. He has shared those information with his wife and his kid, and now he's all having nothing but a peace of mind.
That's great. I mean, it's a great example, and I think there are a few points in that I'd like to dig a little deeper into. And first, from a perspective of DMAT and material assets per se, so can you just give a little bit of additional detail that today, with technology available to us easily, is it necessary to have physical copies of the instruments that you hold, or is it better to have everything in a dematerialized or DMAT form?
Sir, we are in a technological era where the paper is now considered to be, you can say, it has been a history. People are doing things on technologically, and there are so many platforms and plethora of product providers are there who can give you and help you to get everything digitalized. So when things are coming to you in a digitalized manner and making your life easy, why are we still talking about the papers?
Yeah. No, so just to sort of clarify, because sometimes people have the feeling that, I need something to show it is authentic or I own it in a physical form. But thank you for clarifying that. And I think really the next question comes down to, how do you get started with this? I mean, it seems like it's an important task. I know many families in similar situations, unfortunately, who may have been, running helter-skelter post-event, where either the family does not have a sense of where or what the assets that are there are, and don't really know whether they can, access all of these instruments. I mean, while you're talking about shares and mutual funds, simple things like bank accounts can also be a challenge at times. So really coming down to it, how do you get started? How does one go about it? If you can share some examples and some light on that.
See, before I can tell you how to go about it, we have touched in a very good point where, I know somebody who did not have a records with him in place, and what he has to or what she has to go through. Once again, I will share one live example of a client of mine. In fact, now he is no more. His name was Darshan. And what happened is that Darshan, one fine day, I came to know that he got a cardiac arrest and he died at the age of 42 years. Fine. Going up in the heaven is there. Everyone has to go up. But then the worst part which has happened is that at that point of time when he passed away, the wife was only carrying about 4,000 dirhams in her pocket. She did not know what were the bank accounts. She did not know what were the ATM passwords. She did not know what were the policies, what were the investments which he has done. And she was completely, like you can say, she did not know what to do now next. We approached the colleagues, we approached the employers just to see that what the husband would have had done. And from that herd mentality, we came to know that in the office, what happened is that if someone does the investment, the other gentlemen also tend to do it.
They tend to follow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we came to know that husband has invested some funds into that Indian Millennium Deposits, which came in 2000. And luckily, we managed to get some few details. And due to that details, we came to know that he has invested an adequate amount of money. Now, to get that money out, the wife has to go from pillar to post, and there was no proper beneficiary set down on that, and it was so difficult for her. It took almost 6 months for her to get that money back.
Wow.
So And the kind of a financial stress she has gone through. She was living in a 2-bedroom hall where she was forced to rent 1 bedroom for just getting relief in the rental kind of a
So liquidity became a challenge
So these kind of a things which happen for the people who don't keep a record. So it is very important that one should not only do whatever they are doing it for the family, but they should even share it with the family.
No, absolutely. And it's something that you don't think about, but it has a major impact on the ones that are left behind.
Yeah.
So again, going back to the question that we started with, and thank you for sharing that example. But when if there's advice that you'd like to give, or a pathway that you'd like to share with our audience in terms of how can they get started on this journey, what are the first steps that you would recommend that someone takes?
See, again, before getting into what exactly one has to give and one has to do, I would like to again share one very good example when it comes to financial consolidation. Again, it's a real-time life story which I'm going to share it with you. Again, I came across with a client of mine in about 2008 or something like that, and he did some education planning with me.
Okay.
But before meeting up with me, he has already done some couple of insurance policies and some couple of investments through some another brokers or some another banks, where he has already taken care of all those areas. All these informations I came to know from him while I was doing his KYC. One fine day.
Sorry, what is KYC? Just for our audience?
KYC is know your client. I mean, these are all compliance requirement which we need to do it while we are doing any kind of an application, or a new business has been placed. Sure. So while I was doing this thing, I came to know that these are the policies which he's having. In one of the meeting, I asked him that why don't you have a second opinion? Let us have a small review on what are the policies which you are having. This client of mine, whose name was Naren because he is now no more. Okay. What he did is he shared all those documents with me. Again, with most of his difficulties, he could not find out the documents where it is. He shared all those documents with me that these are the policies. And we came to know that there are about 6 policies which he is having from different providers and different brokerage houses or a bank. Thankfully, when I was talking to him, I said to him that, Mr. Naren, today you are alive and you are finding it so difficult to get all those information together. Think about a situation when if you are not there, how your wife is going to take care of all those things. Correct. And now, to his luck, you can say, since I am representing Continental Insurance Brokers, we were also being able to do the same policies. What I did is that I asked him to transfer all his policies to Continental and bring it at one place, consolidate it. Try to bring all these things at one place so that the lesser the contact points after the person is not there is better for the beneficiaries, which he did.
So better, sorry to interrupt, better, but more from a perspective of being able to sort of have one point of contact to manage the rest.
Yeah, and it has really helped in his case because then in about 2014, 2015, he relocated to Canada.
Okay.
One fine day, I came to know from the common friend and a social media that this client of mine, he is now no more. I was or you can say more or less, I was expecting a phone call from the family. And I was quite right. One fine day, I got a call from his daughter. And daughter said, Adil uncle, I am daughter of Mr. Naren. And when he came to Dubai, came to Canada, he has just asked me one thing, that should something happen to me, I have a couple of policies done in Dubai and all these things are lined up in Continental Insurance Brokers. So the first person for you to contact is Adil. And if Adil is also not there, then you can contact Continental, which she did. And she said, Adil uncle, now what's next? And I said, let us exchange the emails. And then we did the formalities. And you know what? Within the stipulated time of 3 to 4 weeks, she was able to get all the policies, documentation sorted out, and the claim was there in the bank account of the beneficiaries without any much hassle. So this is the advantage of consolidation.
I mean, from the first example that you gave us, where it took almost 6 months and a lot of running around for the family to be able to access and even know what assets were there to hear where you were able to, and they were able to manage to get the proceeds within about 3 to 4 weeks. That's under a month.
Yeah.
No, so of course we recognize that there is a big impact that it has, being able to keep your records consolidated, stored in one place, and organized in a good manner. So I mean, from that example and picking up, the first thing that you actually asked your client to do was to share the details with you.
Yes.
What details would those be? I mean, what would you ask him to share with you? How would you take a client through that journey?
The first thing, ask the client to give you all the documentation in terms of the policy papers, like what's his policy number, what's his cover, what's the premium, when it is going to get matured, how long is he going to get the premiums paid. All these details you will be able to find on the policy document. So just try to gather all those things. And then I can answer that question, that how to go about it.
Yeah,
where
please.
you have to just do it in a simplest of its manner. Put it on a piece of paper or put it in an Excel sheet and get going. It's little challenging for the initial stage, but then once you start putting in some details, your Excel sheet will start filling it out automatically.
Correct.
And you will see that, oh my God, all these things consolidated at one place.
So what details would you say should be captured? I mean, obviously policy number sounds that's an important part of being able to track the assets that you've got, the institution that it is with. What else?
I will, rather than what we should do it, let me just tell you what I have done it for myself. Let me just walk you through,
please,
because I am the one who normally try to walk the talk rather than just show you things. I have done something in the simplest of its manner. I am technologically little challenged, but I'm sure most of the listeners, they are not. But still, what I managed to do it is I have done a couple of things in my life over this period of 25 years in Dubai. I have accumulated some funds. I have done something for the family. What I did is I have opened up an Excel document and started putting everything in a systematic manner. The first page, which carries the summary of that, then I have divided it into the sheets where the first page is like, let's say, all the bank accounts, then the mutual funds, then the stocks, then the insurance policies, all those things sorted out as a sheet-wise thing. So it's a complete one-page kind of a document, or one document, everything is available.
So it's a document and you've got different sheets for the different asset classes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And encrypt it, or you can say put a password to it.
Yeah, I was going to come to that. So I mean, Excel and putting all of your personal information in one file, how safe is it? And
I have done that way. I have encrypted it and put it on some, you can say, a cloud or a Gmail or something like that. It's a common Gmail done for all the family members.
Oh, okay.
Where everyone can access the same Gmail, and I keep on updating it on a regular basis as and when I do something. And you know what? Rather than you doing it off your own, I would suggest you to let your better half sit next to you and just do it along with you. It's all about, you can say, I mean, I have heard one very beautiful saying from our boss Ashok Sardana also, that it's all about progression and not perfection. So you keep on doing things as and when keep on improving it over a period of time. But then whenever you do something, let your wife also be there, or let your spouse also be there, and she also knows what exactly you are doing.
And that is an important part of being able to access these records when it's needed, right?
100%. See, what's the point of me doing so many things for my family and when it's not of a use to them?
Correct.
So I'm doing it for them. I mean, they are the ultimate beneficiaries for that. So they should be able to access it. They should be able to see what exactly I have done for them.
Yeah. And just one other thing that's come out from the conversation with regard to beneficiaries and nomination on the policies. Can you share, today I've come across many friends, colleagues, clients who either hesitate to put the name of a beneficiary, do not know, whose name they should put, or think that they'll do it later. What's your take on that?
Okay, again, I'm the man, I'm someone who really talks only on examples. 2000 and I lost my father in 2009. When I was accessing some few of my documents in 2011, I saw in one of my policies back home in India, my father was a beneficiary in there.
Okay.
Now, to change the beneficiary from my father's name to my wife's name, it takes just 1 day's time. I have to just give that proof that she is my wife and she is the one who is going to take care of the money once I am not there. It's just a 1 day, some few documents, and she is the beneficiary, change can be done. If that would have been not there, and should something had happened to me, my wife has to go to the court of law and prove that she is my wife, notarize the documents, and again it takes approximately about some couple of weeks or couple of months, I don't know. So better keep on reviewing that who are your policy beneficiaries, who are your nominees in your whatever investments you are doing. So it becomes very easy for them once you are not there.
Correct. Yeah. And picking on that, I mean, there are some elements or some documents that we may not be at this current point of time be able to sort of digitize. And I'm assuming that when we obviously are listing the financial records that we've got, it means all assets, including, for example, property. So these agreements that we've got for, let's say for a home or for one home or several homes, how do you suggest we handle those? I mean,
again, example.
Please.
It's all about progression, not a perfection. Till 2019, I was just trying to do it in the simplest of its manner, keeping it in an Excel sheet with that whatever is a property number or a survey number or a electricity meter number and all those things in that kind of a format.
Okay.
But 2019 was a little great change, you can say, for my life. What happened is that we have applied for a Canadian visa for my son's education. And where they wanted me to give the properties and they wanted me to show some assets back home in India. Okay. Now, all these documents were there with me and they were all in regional language of Gujarati. I'm from Gujarat, Baroda. I could not produce those documents to the Canadian authority. So what the counselor said to me that you need to do it through some government approved valuer. I hired a government approved valuer. And you know what, Anselm, he has done the job so beautifully. He has notarized the document. Not only that, I came to know my property's location, the survey number, the property number, but I also came to know the latest valuation as per the government approved valuer in India at this point of time. Now, in my Excel sheet, what I have done it is just written when the property column, refer the valuer's report. That's it. And that valuation report is there in hard copy also, and I have also scanned it in the best of it. And it's just some few pages which we can immediately scan it and put it across.
Sure. And where do you store these documents? Is there a particular place? Do you keep it so that it is available, accessible and safe?
Yeah, I mean, normally every house, there must be some kind of a locker or a cupboard where, you can just put anything which is physical. You can put it at one place, maybe in one briefcase, and make things easy, keep it simple. I mean, there are certain people who go one step ahead and they keep all these documents into a locker. But again, you have to also see that these lockers, passwords and the keys and who are the people who can access, all those things are clear to the beneficiary.
Correct.
Then only it makes sense. It's not about how technically or how efficiently you are keeping the records. It is somebody, like if my wife is unable to understand what I have done, no point in doing anything in a best of its form.
Understand. So it's important to keep that communication open and to have it in a space or a place where it is easily, or where they can access and they can use those documents and that information. Great. What about family members? I mean, do you think that children, the spouse obviously is logical, but what about children? Getting them involved into this conversation, does that make sense?
I encourage. In fact, when the kid is in some kind of, and in fact, if we involve the kid also, it is always a great idea for having a financial literacy among the kids as well. Kids should know about it. Of course, not when somebody who is having a 16 year, 17 year, 18 year kid,
sure,
nothing wrong in involving him because he is quite mature enough to understand all those things, and let him be there, because if things goes wrong, he or she will come to the rescue of the mother or the better half to get those things sorted out. So nothing wrong. We can vote post 18 years. So why can't we, involve them post 18 years?
I mean, even before 18, like you said, I think when they're
nothing
teenagers,
wrong.
they're quite intelligent. They understand these things. So makes sense to. So how do you talk about it? I mean, what would you suggest? I think for many families, it may be a little odd or awkward to suddenly start talking about, these are the instruments that I've got and this is where I've kept them. It is an emotional topic, of course. So how do you approach it?
You know what? How often do you go with your wife on a Valentine's date?
Valentine's Day once a year, but yes.
How often you go with your wife on a birthdays, celebrations, and all those things? I recommend you that why don't we have a financial record keeping date along with your spouse?
That's interesting.
Go on a date on every year. Just go or take out a week or 2 days or 1 day. Sit down with her. Talk to her not with an emotion, but talk to her on a rational manner, or you can say a logical manner, that these are the things which I have and these are the things which you need to access it if should something happen to me. And there is nothing wrong, and people know now in this kind of a era where the nuclear families are there, and we need to take those kind of an information and decisions logically rather than emotionally. So
that's very interesting. And how many financial dates have you been on?
I go every year. In fact, you can say I go on every year 2 times. One in the first week of, you can say that the first week of the new year, which is every new year, I go on that financial date with my wife. And second is whenever we have this, I'm a religion point of view, I'm a Muslim. So I give zakat and all those things.
Correct.
Then whenever there is a zakat time comes in, I involve my wife and discuss all those things, that these are the things which we have. So there are 2 dates which I normally go every year with my wife.
Has she said anything about it? I mean, I'm assuming that you started this at some point of time in the past decade or so. Before that, was there any kind of feedback or message that she said to you that it was useful, or
See, initially she was reluctant. Oh, no. She don't wanted to discuss those hard facts of the life. But then these are the facts.
Sure.
But then now later on, she has also realized it. And now she is taking a part in whatever I'm explaining it to her, or whether she understands, she does not understand. But then if she's there, at least she knows that these are the things which I have.
Correct. And there's another part of the record keeping or consolidation that sort of comes a little close, may not be the same, but I've heard many people talk about the importance of a will. And that's more for sort of asset distribution and for, making sure that the finance part of things get distributed in the manner of your choosing. Have you been involved in making of wills for clients? Do you have any examples that you can sort of share with us about?
I'm not a qualified person to make a will.
Yep.
Okay. But then we do channel partner it with people who are specialized into making a will.
Okay.
There is a saying that will has to be next to your pillow. Okay. I mean, you never know tomorrow whether you are going to wake up or not. So that close, I'm talking about the will. But will is needed for some kind of a complicated, this is my personal say on the will, that if you have some properties and some kind of a complication in different countries, that's needed. Of course, it's not, that does not mean that will is not needed for somebody who don't have a properties.
Okay.
But if you are clear with your record keeping, at least do that. Start with that record keeping, because even though if you approach a guy who is making a will, he is also going to tell you and ask you about what are the documentation and what are the assets and liabilities which you are carrying with you.
Correct.
So he, any which ways, is going to ask you about all those things. So why not we start this step number 1, and then step number 2, based on your situation, based on your requirement, you can go ahead and do the wills and then trust, and a lot of things comes in. So that's what I say.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think you touched upon a very important point there, that along with the will, you need to have a list of assets. And this is a great way to make sure that your assets are all listed out, consolidated, and you've got an updated list, so that can form a part of your will.
Absolutely.
So, Adil, I think the insights that you provided have been very useful. Do you have a message for our audience? I mean, if you've got something that you'd like to tell our listeners?
There is one saying, just help me out. A bird in a hand is more valuable than two in the bush.
Yeah.
There is no point of me having a property or a policy or an investment which my beneficiaries don't know. So better whatever I have, show it to them that this is what I have, and this is all easily accessible to them, which is of more importance rather than doing so many things and not known by your beneficiaries. So try to keep things simple, have a record keeping, and put it or try to consolidate things to the best of its ability. And when you grow in your age, which is inevitable, try to have lesser and lesser and lesser contact points. My spouse should be able to connect with only few places to get all of my assets done. So this is my message for the audience or listeners.
And if our audience and listeners want to know more about it, want to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
I see there is something called as Lift. I am in social media, and this Lift is something like I am on LinkedIn, I am on Instagram, I am on Facebook, I am on Twitter.
Okay,
they can be in touch with me. I am all available for them. And if they still want something more to be known, they can also contact Continental Insurance Brokers, where am I associated with, and I can be of a great value and help to them. And that Excel sheet, which I have done it for myself, I would be happily be able to share it. That this is what I have done it in this manner. You can also do it and make life easy, not only for yourself, but also for your beneficiaries or nominees.
That is a fantastic gift, Adil. Thank you very much. The template for the Excel file that you're using, I'm sure our team can have it placed onto the podcast show. There will be a link over there where you can access and download the template, utilize it to make it to consolidate your financial records, as well as you can utilize it to modify it, in any manner that you feel fit, so that it suits your needs. Adil Kadri at LinkedIn. I mean, I'm assuming you go under the same name, Adil.
Yeah, I think it's CFP_Adil or something like that is
okay.
there. But then if you just do Google search Adil Kadri CFP, I will be there. And I have done some couple of seminars also for the financial literacies for the kids and the schools and all those places. So those recordings are also available. So you will be able to see me in anywhere. Adil Kadri, it's a unique name, so you won't find difficult to find me.
Thank you, Adil, for sharing all of that information. It's been extremely useful. I'm sure that our audience and our listeners would find it the same way. And again, like you've mentioned, they can reach you on the Lift mediums. So that's LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I got the order wrong there, but Lift is still the acronym. Easy to remember. We will also have the links available in our show notes at the end of the podcast episode. So you can reach out to Adil through those. Yeah. As always, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support our show, please share it with others and post about it on social media, as well as leave a rating and a review. This is your host, Anselm Mendes, signing off for Dollars, Dirhams, and our 2 Financial Cents. We hope to see you again in our next episode.